All right, welcome back to the show. This is Good Morning Kenya right here on KBC Channel 1. And right now, as I had promised earlier, I have with me the President and the Deputy President of the Institute of Surveyors of Kenya. And they are here to just talk to us about all matters survey and the future of built environment. And they will also be letting us know about a conference that is coming up. That is the regional conference, their 9th regional conference that will be coming up on the first week of November. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen, and I will allow you to introduce yourselves, beginning with you.
Thank you, Vivian. I'm happy to be here. My name is Nelly Bogwa. I am the Deputy President of the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya. I'm a valuer by profession. I'm also a registered and licensed estate agent and a property manager. And I'm very happy to be here to discuss the future of land and built environment. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Eric Nyadimo. I'm the president of the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya. I'm a licensed surveyor with practicing for the last 24 years. Yes.
All right. So when we talk about the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya, what exactly are we talking about? Who exactly are you? What exactly do you do as the Surveyors of Kenya?
So to start with, the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya is 54 years old. It was formed in 1969, and it basically brings together professionals focused on the land and the built environment, specifically the land surveyors, the valuers, property managers, estate agents, engineering surveyors, GIS professionals, and also land administration managers. So the institution is premised on the fact that this is a profession that is focusing on how to manage and administer land in several contexts. And that's why it brings forth all these professionals into that particular body. Yeah.
And probably just to understand, how do you, you can take that, how do you ensure accuracy when it comes to surveys?
Thank you very much. Being a valuer, I'm going to pass this to Eric. Right. Eric, who is a licensed surveyor, to just give us accuracy. It's all about training. You let us know what training you undergo to be able to become a licensed surveyor. The post qualification after the university, what happens to you so that you're trained to make sure that you're accurate? Eric, from me. Thank
you. So accuracy is the backbone of what the surveyors do, because we are primarily involved in taking measurements of distances, measurements of bearings, and we use those to be able to position infrastructure, or to be able to understand what is on the surface of the earth, and representing that on a map, which is then used to do different interpretations leading to decision making by different entities. So to ensure that we have appropriate accuracy, it basically depends on the instrumentation that you're using, or the instruments that you're using, and the methodologies that you are applying. And there are also standards that need to be respected and adhered to ensure that you achieve the required level of accuracy. Yes.
All right. Now, our topic of conversation is on the future of land and built environment. So if you may just paint a picture for us, what is that future looking like?
Thank you very much, Vivian. Now, one of the things that we need to appreciate about land is that we can never create more land. It's already done. Yeah. So, therefore, land as a resource is scarce, and yet we know that the populations, the need for use of that land continues to increase because people are more. So then the need to manage that resource, to protect that resource, to make sure that the way we use it, we administer it, it completely gives us maximum results. It's very important therefore that as professionals who are on a daily basis dealing with that land, we are doing subdivisions on a daily basis. To what extent should we, subdivide it? To what extent should we secure it? To what extent should we protect the environment so that that land resource we can maximize on its use? So that the future is bright to the extent that we protect it. But as professionals, we, like everybody else, get impacted, because if you find land that used to be useful now has been, because of climate change, it's no longer useful. It cannot be arable because it's been, silt has gone into it, or it's been occupied. Let's assume there's a lot of water and it's flooded. That land is no longer useful. We cannot build on it. We cannot, even how we use it. Let's say you do quarry, you utilize that land later. How do we manage it? How do we take care of it? So that the future generation have space on the already existing land. So that's what we're talking about.
All right.
Thank you.
And to you, sir, how do we adapt in order for us to thrive when it comes to the future of a land and built environment? What do we need to do to adapt?
Yeah, that's a good question. We need to look at sustainable practices that would ensure that we can be able to adapt to the changing environment, because we are aware that the only constant thing in the world is change. There's a lot of change that happens on a day-to-day basis, and we are seeing that in terms of climate effects. We are seeing that in terms of urbanization. We are seeing that in terms of change of use of land, say from agriculture to residential. So sustainable practices like ensuring that we protect the fragile ecosystems by mapping and demarcating those kind of ecosystems, by ensuring that the buildings that are put up are energy efficient, the maintenance of the buildings, the use of the 3D space. Instead of building mansionettes, we can build apartments and make use of the vertical space to ensure that we can accommodate more people within a limited amount of space. Because when you look at land, we are talking about a finite resource, and we are saying that there is increasing population, and there is competition for what we need to use that land for, whether it's going to be used for residential or it's going to be used for putting up of infrastructure. These are all competing elements, and we need to ensure that whatever we do within our practice, we can ensure that this resource is sustainably managed.
Speaking about ensuring that, if this particular land is should be used for infrastructure or residentials, is there a way you can tell on, which one fits where?
Yes.
Yeah. How do you tell on this one is supposed to be for the residentials, this one should be for infrastructure? How are you able to tell?
So the first thing that we need to do is to do mapping. And when we do mapping, we are able to see where the various features, both man-made and natural features, are occurring. In that particular context, we can look at the soil, and we understand the soil conditions, and we can see whether a given piece of land or a given land is better suitable for agriculture use, in which case then that land would be reserved, say, for agricultural practices. For putting up an infrastructure like a road, we need to ensure that the road is passing through an ecosystem that is not fragile, like swamps or floodplains and areas like that. So by looking at several factors, you're able to understand what needs to be the land use, and what man-made feature you can be able to deploy in that particular infrastructure, in that particular land. Yes.
Okay. To you, ma'am, maybe when do we get to a point where we're saying that we are actually thriving when it comes to our built and our land and built environment? When do we get to a point where we say we are thriving, we are doing the right thing?
Thank you, Vivian. Thriving is a journey, and I think it's continuous. But when we discover the need that change has to happen, it's constant, and we look at areas like my colleague has mentioned, where do we make changes? What policies do we make to protect our environment? It is at that point when we have protected our environment, we are confident that our wetlands are safe, we are not building on them, we have protected them, our rivers are clean, they are safe. Then our buildings are also on stable grounds, and we don't have collapse as a result of environmental changes, collapse of buildings. Then that is a time we can say we are thriving. So it's a continuous process. We'll continue making the changes together, as we move along, because climate change, again, is it keeps evolving. And as we continue to utilize that resource, as the population continues to increase, we recognize that there are different ways will be impacted. So it's being able to look at the future, what is likely to impact us negatively, prepare for it. I think for me that is thriving. That is being able to predict and ensure that you can tell we may not have a lot of rains in terms of the use of our land, and we are prepared ourselves in terms of irrigation. Those are some of the ways of saying we are getting somewhere. So it's a journey that we are walking, and I think we can only say we'll get there when you have our people properly housed, our people having sufficient food. That is thriving to my assessment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you love to add on to that? When do we say we are actually thriving in this?
I think as Nelly has put it across, it's all about where we have appropriate land use, where we can be able to see that the land has been put into proper use, and there is demarcation in between where you should, for example, say have residential or have infrastructure development or have agriculture. If we look at our country at the moment, we are having situations where land that should be left for agriculture is being used for residential, and yet we have certain areas that would really serve well for residential. Just agreeing there with Nelly, it's appropriate land use that can sustain the living and ensure that there is minimal conflict between the various uses.
Yeah. Now, in Nairobi, we have experienced collapsing of buildings, with a very recent one happening just the other day, over the weekend, if I'm not wrong, in Kahawa West. Where are we going wrong? When do we get to a point where such is not a matter that is happening in the country? So where exactly are we going wrong when it comes to that?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate incident that happened in Kahawa West, and as an institution, we wish to express our messages of support and sympathy to those who are affected. But on the other hand, we say that these incidences continue to increase, and there is need for urgent action to be taken. And one of the leading reasons why we have collapse of buildings is on the people who are used to construct the buildings, especially when you're talking about doing a storied building. You need to have professionals on board, and they need to undertake appropriate studies. For example, looking at the geotechnical studies to study the soil and the soil structure. We also need to be aware that in Nairobi you have fault lines. So the land is not stable, so it keeps on moving in one way or another, even if it is in the order of millimeters per year. But understanding all these aspects become important when the siting of the buildings comes into place. And we have seen that increasingly we are building buildings from beacon to beacon. And there is destabilization of, you find that a building has already been put, and then somebody comes and excavates and does not put up the other building in conformity with the building that was already in existence. So that already creates some levels of instability. But essentially, most of this is unprofessional work in terms of the kind of concrete that is being used, the kind of metals that are being used to secure the building, and so on and so forth. Unprofessionalism is leading to this collapse of buildings and destruction of property.
Yeah, so maybe who should be held responsible? Because, you know, sometimes lives are lost, you know, property is destroyed, and most times, like, no one really is held accountable. So who exactly, according to your opinion, should be held accountable in such matters, or such an incident, when such an incident occurs?
Yeah, I think it is appropriate for the approving authorities, in this case the counties, to ensure that they have in place the requisite professionals who can be able to look and approve the building plans that are submitted to them. And they also then need to have a very strong arm in terms of inspection. You find that most of the counties, they lack the personnel, necessary personnel within the technical department. Like, you're talking about architects, you're talking about engineers, you're talking about surveyors, and so on and so forth, who can be able to help out in looking at the building plans that are submitted for them to be able to approve. And then the other aspect is on the developers. The developers must ensure that they use professionals, and they must use registered professionals to undertake the work. They must not cut corners, because if you change the concrete mix, if you change on the standards of the metals that you need to be able to use for the building, if you do not excavate to the right level, if you do not do appropriate geotechnical studies, then ultimately you're putting that infrastructure that you're putting up to danger, and you are endangering the lives of those who would live in that kind of an infrastructure, and you're also wasting your money. I think it is necessary that people appreciate that we have professionals and make use of the professionals to undertake any work that they want to do, not shortcuts.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Now, maybe to you, ma'am, you know, Nairobi is very highly populated, and if we try and project how the future will look like for Nairobi, I'm sure, like, the population of Nairobi will be really high, you know, so and also the buildings that are coming up are many as well. So is that, or would that pose any threat to the future that we are looking at? That is the future of land and and built environment.
Thank you, Vivian. I would say yes, definitely, because again, like we said, the land resource, we cannot create more, but we can utilize the space that we have effectively. And like my president has said, you have to look at the vertical space now, because if we continue, going horizontal, we are enclosed, and we are moving towards areas that, as he has mentioned, our agricultural spaces where our food needs to come from. So we can't continue developing individual small units, because we'll keep moving on from Nairobi, we go to the suburbs, we go to Kitengela, we will continue to Machakos, we go this other side. These are areas where coffee used to be part of, where we used to find our food basket. Most likely then we may have to expand and become an entire urban area, and Nairobi continues to move further. So we need to think of how do we maximize what we have, and it is possible to go up. It is possible to ensure that we can consolidate our resources. That means, of course, policies, so that and also education to our the urban dwellers, that it is important that we go high rise, and maximize on the space. Of course, the challenge that we get with high rise is the issue of social spaces, a walking track, a place where people can relax, because sometimes people want privacy, they want a place they can relax, they can walk, and that's why they're looking for that small little garden next to them. But if we are able to plan it so well, we can bring in everyone together on the taller buildings, which of course are taken care of, are constructed well, so that we are able to preserve the little that we have as a city, for instance, as a city of Nairobi. Yeah.
What technological advancements are there when it comes to surveying so far?
Surveying is, the technology keeps evolving. And we have seen surveying evolving from the time when we used to use ropes to do measurements, starting with the ancient Egyptian civilization. And we have transitioned even to using birds to capture images, and we have gotten to a stage now where we are using drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, to map relatively small areas which the conventional aerial photography would be a difficulty. We are also now having what we call LiDAR, light detection and ranging, which allows us to use light to measure elevation, elevation, and be able to create elevation maps, and also to map, do 3D mapping. For example, if you look at this studio, we can have a LiDAR machine which can be put at the center, and we can pick out all the details that are contained in this room. We also have what we call laser distance meters, which are used by our valuers to be able to measure buildings, to get the lengths and the widths of the buildings that they use then to be able to determine the areas of a building. And we have the Global Navigation Satellite System, which is used to do a lot of mapping, and it is an evolving technology in terms of how it is used and how it is deployed. So the other aspect is that we have what we call mobile LiDAR, or mobile technology, where we can mount a device on a vehicle, and it can be driving along a certain route, and it is picking all the details on the road. So the technology continues to evolve, and it continues to capture a lot of data. In fact, our problem now is on how much data we have, and how to be able to manage that particular data. Yes.
Okay, before we get to talk about the regional conference that will be happening next month, maybe, as she said, land is a natural resource that is already there. We can't be able to make any more of it. So who is responsible in managing the land that is already there?
Yeah. Land is managed by a diverse range of professionals. We have the surveyors who have to do the mapping of the land, because you need to know what is it that you have. So the surveyors will come out and create the maps. Then we have the physical planners who will use the information that has been generated by the surveyors insofar as creating the maps is concerned, to be able to identify the unique land uses. Like, for example, this is for residential, this is for agriculture, and so on and so forth. And then the surveyor will come on board again in that particular respect to now do what we call cadastral surveying, where they define the land and put out what you call the beacons to clearly identify a given land for a given use case. And beyond that, we have the land administrators who are then concerned with the issuance of the respective documents for ownership. And then we have the valuers coming on board in terms of valuing that particular property, and we have the estate agents who are involved in the aspect of selling and the disposal of those particular assets. So you find that there is a diverse range of professionals that are involved in managing the land. But I would say that the most critical aspects here is to map the land, to identify the resources that are there, and then to be able to plan it so that you can manage that finite resource.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so the 9th ISK regional conference is coming up, Ma'am, if you can tell me about the conference, what is expected?
Thank you, Vivian. We have, as mentioned earlier, we have our 9th every year, the surveying professionals. Earlier, we have about a week, either in Nairobi, either in any part of the country, to be able to discuss the challenges they learn from each other. So this year we are meeting in Mombasa at Pride in Paradise Beach Resort and Spa, and we are looking to discuss the theme Adapt, Thrive, Sustain, the future of land and built environment in the face of change. Mm-hmm. That is what we'll be discussing, to look at how do we manage when challenges come our way. For instance, COVID-19, definitely it came in, changed the way we looked at things, changed the way people demanded offices, demanded working spaces. People are now working from home. Again, even the incidences of climate change, things have changed. The way of doing business, even running your own company, has changed. And therefore, we are coming together to see, in the face of the changes that are happening, how do we proceed? How do we run our businesses differently? How do we market our businesses differently? How do we protect our environment? What is our role as professionals in taking care of our environment? So that is what we'll be doing on the 7th and the 8th of November. And we're inviting all professionals to come and join us as we discuss this important aspect of managing to thrive and sustaining our businesses, sustaining our environment in the face of imminent change and challenges.
All right, so it's happening from the
7th to the 8th of November.
Okay, 7th to 8th of November, Pride Inn Hotel in Mombasa, and all stakeholders in that field are invited to come for it. All right, so that was the president of the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya, as well as the vice president, and they have just built the picture for us on the future of land and built environment. Thank you so much for coming through to the program, and we are hoping to also keep tabs, as the conference goes on. Thank you so much. This is where we end this particular conversation. Don't you go too far, because when we come back, it will be Entertainment Thursday. My DJ is actually getting to his desk, so be ready to put your dancing shoes on.